Okay, so today we're going to cover the following topics: why compliance is important, some key points about client eligibility, sponsors' record keeping and reporting responsibilities, managing and avoiding conflicts of interest, audits and reviews, resources, and where you can get some contacts for help. So just a reminder about what the WDO scheme is. So work and development orders, well, the WDO scheme has achieved some pretty amazing results since it was first piloted in 2009 and then rolled out from 2011. We recently learned that over $130 million of fines debt has been cleared by the WDO scheme. So a big shout out to all you sponsors who work with people every day to clear their fines debt. The Work and Development Order service is delivered by 3 organisations: Revenue New South Wales, who manage unpaid fines in New South Wales and issue WDOs. You can contact the hotline on 1300 478879 for help with the online self-service portal. They also process new WDO sponsors and variation applications. The Department of Justice, who administer the WDO scheme, including overseeing the WDO guidelines and audits, and Legal Aid New South Wales. And we have 6 WDO teams across the state. We promote access to WDOs across New South Wales, provide sponsor training, develop WDO resources, and provide a specialist service for clients with unpaid fines. You can find details of your closest WDO team on the Legal Aid New South Wales website. Just search WDO. Okay, so let's just quickly recap who can do a WDO. So there are 6 eligibility criteria for a WDO listed on the portal. In 2017, the WDO guidelines changed to include young people under 18 years of age as a new eligibility category, which sits under acute economic hardship. However, the sponsor must also be satisfied that the young person is unable to pay the fine and does not possess substantial assets. The other eligibility criteria are acute economic hardship, homelessness, mental illness, intellectual disability or a cognitive impairment, and a serious addiction to drugs, alcohol, and other volatile substances.
So, well, Christy, why is compliance so important? The WDO program gives vulnerable people a unique opportunity to resolve their fines debt by helping the community or themselves through participating in various activities. As this involves options other than payment, it is extremely important that the integrity of the program is maintained. Sponsors play a key role, so it is important that every effort is made to ensure that the program guidelines are followed and that appropriate records are kept.
Okay, so one of the key responsibilities for WDO sponsors is to keep records about the eligibility of people who do a WDO. So sponsors must understand that WDO service eligibility requirements. They must keep documents to confirm their client's WDO eligibility and be satisfied that their client or patient does not have substantial assets other than their home, and they have determined that it is more appropriate for their client or patient to do the WDO rather than pay their fines. And, you know, sometimes these things come up and you're just really not sure, aren't you, Tanya?
Exactly.
And, you know, we often will get questions from our sponsors, and I'm sure you equally get phone calls from sponsors saying, oh, listen.
Or emails as well, Christy.
Yeah,
so if ever you're unsure, always call the hotline on the 1300 478 879 or look at the WDO guidelines. Okay, they will be your sponsors' guidelines and Bible.
And page 8 does detail some of this eligibility questions. So you can, if you can't find the answer, feel free to contact one of us and we can help you find it.
Definitely, you're not alone in this.
Yeah. Okay, so another responsibility of sponsors is to retain records to show that your client is eligible to do a WDO in accordance with Clause 5 of the WDO guidelines. So this requires sponsors to retain proof of identity or other documentation which establishes the identity of the applicant. So proof of identification might include a copy of the applicant's driver's license, birth certificate, or other photo ID. Evidence that a working with children check has been undertaken for the applicant if the proposed activities involve child-related activities, or for the person responsible for the supervision of these activities under a WDO if the applicant is under 18 years. And you also must retain proof of eligibility in accordance with the guidelines. We recommend that you use the client details form, which has been developed by Legal Aid New South Wales, which can help you gather the information that you need to enter into the self-service portal to meet your proof obligations in terms of eligibility. So this is available as a handout in PDF format in your control panel, which you can now download as we go through it.
So just remember, if you have any questions, Jules and Rebecca are here on hand to answer any of them, because it is a lot of information to take on.
Yeah, it is, and it can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to have a look at sponsor qualifications. So if you're providing a specialised service to your clients that requires qualifications, so such as counselling, medical or mental health treatment, sponsors or your staff must hold the current qualifications to provide these services. It's also expected that those qualifications are kept up to date. If you refer your clients to a third party, you are expected to have confirmed that the third party holds the appropriate qualifications and that these are also kept up to date. So sponsors might be asked to provide proof that they are qualified to deliver services to WDO participants. As we discussed earlier, a person can undertake one or more of the following activities to satisfy their fines debt under a WDO. Unpaid work with, on, or behalf of an approved organisation, medical or mental health treatment in accordance with a health practitioner's treatment plan, an educational, vocational or life skills course, financial or other counselling, drug or alcohol treatment, or a mentoring program if the person is under 25. However, if a person is eligible for a WDO solely on the ground that they have a serious addiction to drugs, alcohol or volatile substances, he or she must undertake drug or alcohol treatment and or counselling as part of the WDO. A person can work off up to a maximum of $1,000 per month off their fines debt. It's the responsibility of the sponsor to ensure that the activities proposed to be undertaken in a WDO are suitable and appropriate for the client. So now, as a reminder, we'll go through what direct and refer activities mean. So when an organisation applies to become a WDO sponsor, as well as choosing which activities they can offer to clients, they also choose whether they are able to provide these activities directly or on referral. Direct means that you provide to your clients or patients these activities through your service, and on referral means that you support your client or patient to do a WDO activity with another organisation, but you still do all the setting up and reporting to Revenue New South Wales. The 2017 WDO guidelines provide more details about the responsibilities of WDO sponsors when referring clients or patients to do activities through a third party. And the relevant section of the guidelines is section 12.6. These state that organisations and health practitioners can be approved to refer WDO clients to third-party service providers while the sponsor continues to supervise the client. When referring to a third-party organisation, you need to be satisfied that they have current insurance covering the activity supporting the WDO, current registration with APRA if it's a health practitioner, or AASW if it's a social worker, and appropriately trained, experienced or accredited staff for the treatment or activities being undertaken as part of the WDO, work health and safety procedures, and you have undertaken a working with children check if the client is under the age of 18.
That's a lot of information.
It is.
But not like we know that the sponsors have a huge responsibility, but also our clients do as well. So it's important that you are clear with your clients or patients about their obligations to ensure they fully comply with the requirements of their WDO. These include turning up to an activity as agreed or taking their prescribed medication, getting a timesheet signed off after each session if attending an activity, providing information to you to enable you to report monthly on the WDO activity to Revenue New South Wales using the portal. If the client is doing a treatment activity on referral, the WDO sponsor will need to liaison directly with the health practitioner to confirm compliance with the activity. Use of emails to get this information is considered sufficient as evidence if audited. You can report nil activity in the portal if that month the client does not complete any hours as part of their treatment plan. However, it is important that if the client is not engaging with the WDO activity treatment plan at all or after a couple of months, you can close the WDO. This means Revenue New South Wales will get in touch with the client to discuss other options to pay off their fines. It also means they can do another WDO with another organisation if that is the best option. This is because they can only do one WDO at any given time. Now we're going to look at another case study.
Okay, so this case study is about entering activities in a client activity report. So Robert is seeing you for his PTSD and he has fines from travelling on the train without his concession card. Robert is a veteran. Robert has a 30-minute train trip and an hour appointment with you. After each session, you spend about 30 minutes writing up his notes and recording details in the WDO portal as you only see him once a month. Tanya, what hours should we enter for Robert?
We get this question a lot about rounding up or down hours. You cannot include the travel time. In Robert's case, the appointment is for 1 hour, so 1 hour should be recorded. In general terms, if a client attends over 30 minutes appointment, you would round up to the hour. And if attending less than 30 minutes, the time cannot be included. Kirsty, so...
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So reporting periods open on the 15th of the month. Client activity reports must be entered on a monthly basis, whether the client has attended or not. If there is a reason why the customer did not attend, it is important that you enter those details into the portal. If customers fail to attend more than 3 times without an explanation, Revenue New South Wales may close, meaning revoke, the WDO and resume enforcement action to recover the overdue fines. After 1 month, the car becomes overdue. A car that is more than 3 months overdue is classed as a delinquent report. If the WDO becomes overdue or delinquent, Revenue New South Wales will notify you. The WDO is at risk of being closed or revoked. If a delinquent reports are not provided, this means Revenue New South Wales may restart enforcement action to recover the client's overdue fines debt. And we don't want to see that happen because, you know, we are there to assist our vulnerable persons. So always contact the hotline if you have any questions. And just remember, we've got Rebecca and Jules sitting there to answer any questions because it is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
So monitoring compliance, reviews and audits. Audits are carried out to ensure our sponsors are compliant with record keeping and reporting requirements. This includes documentation to demonstrate their ongoing compliance with the conditions of their WDO sponsor approval. Documentation showing the level of compliance with the WDO attendance or participation, completion of any assessments, compliance with any course or treatment. However, audits or spot checks will not ask for clients' individual medical records to be disclosed. So we really want to make that clear.
I think too, Tanya, a lot of people when they hear audit...
Oh, it's scary. It's really
word.
Scary. Yeah.
And, you know, what's Revenue's approach when you do an audit and, you know, there might be some adverse findings in the audit? I mean, I've always heard from revenue that you take an educative rather than a punitive approach.
That's exactly right.
So it's just more about a learning opportunity and identifying those.
And if unsure, just give us a call.
Yeah.
We're happy to discuss.
Okay, great.
So look, as part of the approval process, all sponsors agree to participate in audits, Kirsty.
Yep.
Sponsors have an obligation to satisfactorily respond to any audit findings within a specified time frame, as may be directed by the Department of Justice or Revenue New South Wales. Even withdrawal from the WDO scheme does not necessarily remove a sponsor from being subject to audits for a period of their approval in the scheme. We get asked about what records are required for an audit. The records you need to keep are proof of eligibility and also attendance at the activity. And these records are to be kept for up to 5 years. So we're now going to do a poll about the responsibilities of a WDO sponsor.
Okay, so I've just launched that poll, Tanya.
Yep. So WDO sponsors are responsible for assessing and keeping proof of eligibility. B, providing the WDO activity. C, setting up and reporting on the WDO using the portal. D, keeping records of the client's participation in the WDO activity. And E, all of the above.
Okay, so we're getting those responses coming in now. Just give people another minute or
loving it all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I'm seeing some right answers here. Okay, we'll close that off and we'll share those results with everybody. Tanya?
93%, all of the above. Way to go, our sponsors out there and case managers, loving it.
And the other 7% by the end of the session, they'll be aces.
Definitely.
Yeah,
they'll be able to
over it.
run the webinar.
That's what I like to hear. Okay, so conflict of interest. So let's go through and have a look. Sponsors must ensure that they take appropriate steps to avoid conflicts of interest between themselves and clients undertaking WDOs. So to explain this further, we'll now go through a few points. I mean, the idea of conflict of interest for a lawyer, it's quite a common term. We hear that quite a lot in our work, but you know, across the community sector, it's not necessarily something that you would come across.
It's not.
So let's have a look at what is a conflict of interest. So this arises where the personal interest of someone involved in supporting a potential WDO client or supervising a WDO client has influenced or may influence or may be perceived as influencing their professional decision making regarding the client's eligibility for and fulfillment of a WDO. So if an actual, potential or perceived conflict of interest arises, the sponsor must notify Revenue New South Wales through the self-service portal or by sending an email to wdo@revenue.nsw.gov.au explaining how they propose to manage the conflict. So, Tanya, it's not going to be a case where every time a conflict arises that then there will be no prospects for that client to do a WDO. It's just about finding out a way that that conflict can be managed within a service.
Exactly, definitely. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact either via email or the hotline. So, yeah. So
okay. So I think now what we'll do is we will finish off with a case study.
Yeah, another case study.
So let's talk about Miranda. Oh, okay. So
she's got a lot going on.
Girlfriend has a lot going on.
She has.
All right. So Miranda is a registered psychologist. She asked for a $20 donation at the door for her counselling services. One of her clients is on a WDO and has asked her out on a date after one of their sessions. And their interaction has now blossomed into a romantic relationship.
I know.
Okay. Are there any conflict of interest issues? Has Miranda complied with the WDO guidelines, and can other actions be taken against Miranda? Tanya?
Oh, wow. So Miranda hasn't complied with the WDO guidelines. She cannot ask for donations from her clients. Section 12.7 of the guidelines state sponsors must not receive any payment, gift or personal benefit from a person applying for or subject to a WDO. She also needs to keep proof of client identity, WDO eligibility and ongoing compliance with the WDO for each of her clients for at least 5 years following the completion. There's also a conflict of interest in terms of her relationship with the client. This relationship might be perceived as influencing her decision-making about the person's involvement with the WDO program. Sponsors should seek to avoid conflicts of interest. However, an actual, potential or perceived conflict arises, the sponsor must contact Revenue New South Wales through the self-service portal or by sending an email to Revenue New South Wales explaining how it proposes to manage the conflict. But Kirsty, in this situation, Miranda could also receive professional sanctions through the APS for her involvement with the client, and that would be such a shame.
Yeah. So, moral of the story, Tanya, is disclosure.
That's it, definitely.
Because
come clean.
And, you know, if Miranda did happen to fall in love, you know, the heart wants what the heart wants.
Exactly.
So you just have to find a way to manage that within your service.
Definitely. And on a serious note, any questions, contact the hotline or email the WDO at Revenue.
Certainly.
So, yeah.
And it might be that her client could also be referred to another psychologist who could take on the WDO.
Definitely.
So there are ways, even if it can't be managed internally, that we can find another sponsor and the client can continue with.
And through Legal Aid in our office, we do it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's run through some final resources for sponsors. So after the webinar, you'll receive an email with links to the following resources developed by the Legal Aid WDO team and Revenue New South Wales. So the step-by-step guide to setting up WDOs, client eligibility checklist, and client details form. And that client details form really is useful to help you collect the information that you'll later need to enter into the self-service portal. So particularly if you don't have access to the online portal when you're going through it with the client, it's a great opportunity to make sure that you're collecting the information that you need to enter later. And here are some contacts for help. So the Revenue New South Wales WDO hotline and also the Legal Aid New South Wales WDO service. So you can contact the WDO service at Legal Aid for some sponsor support and some further training. We can give you on-site training about these issues or just about the scheme generally and also about the portal. And also we can provide a specialist fines advice for your clients. Okay, so we'll now just take some time to go through some of the questions that have come through the webinar. If you would like to ask a question, please feel free to type it in now and we'll answer as many as possible in the time remaining. Remember, you will be receiving an email after we finish with a survey about the webinar and we'd really appreciate your feedback. And also don't forget the email with the links to a number of those resources that we just went through. So
we take feedback on board, Kirsty, don't we?
Absolutely.
So please give us all the feedback.
It helps us inform our next subjects or topics.
Exactly.
And also it helps us find out a little bit about what the actual questions are that we need to answer. So it helps us inform kind of a more targeted webinar series.
One of the questions that did come through was, can an organisation do their own checks? So really, so yes, they can, but as long as it abides by the guidelines. But Legal Aid have a client eligibility checklist anyway that they're going to receive anyway at the end of this webinar.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at that as well. But definitely you can do your own checks, but you must be adhering to the guidelines.
And it's also good to try and adapt the forms that we give you to make them more suitable for your own intake process. So
definitely.
that, you know, just to relieve any double handling that might happen.
And another question we do get too is, can you send me out a WDO application? So no, we can't, because it's an online application through the portal. That is your application. So and through those points you can print them off. So
So everything needs to go through the online form.
Exactly.
What about if a sponsor, having listened to all the different types of activities, thinks, oh, actually, we have a really, a great education program or a life skills program, but we're not approved to do that directly? How could they do a variation?
Oh, they actually go online and complete a variation application. So, and if you're unsure, always call the hotline or email in, and we're there. Our friendly staff are there to give you some assistance. So,
perfect. Okay, well, I think now what we'll do, we'll finish up and wrap up the webinar, but if there are any more questions that come through, we'll take some time now to answer those last few. But thank you, everybody, for your attendance and for your participation. And yeah, any final questions, pop them through now. If not, have a great day. And
have a beautiful day, everyone.
thank you, Jules and Rebecca, also.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.